Thank you all for coming. Betty, if you would let the record reflect that the board met in executive session to discuss matters leading to the employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or persons. We'll move to action item 2, which is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have questions or discussions? That was just a microphone adjustment. All in favor? Thank you. We'll move to number 3, which is the report of the superintendent.
Thank you very much. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. It's nice to see you all. We opened school on our first day with 2,590 students. We did that with great success. We welcomed our staff day before that to themes of peace and good health, and the theme of letting it be so, with some an African drum ring performed by our administrators for our entire faculty. So if you are interested in having a look at that, there's a clip of it on my Twitter feed. It was a lot of fun, and it was a huge surprise to everybody who was there. I have a new fall 2019 playlist, so you can check that out as well if you want to hear some songs that I've been listening to. I think they're cool. I then spoke to the faculty about being flexible and being interdependent, and how things have to move and wane with one another if we're going to meet the needs of our students in a productive way. So tonight, upon the board's feedback, I'll be presenting our final set of goals for the 1920 school year. And we will also be presenting the legal notice for the board's action tonight regarding the proposed bond that is ready to go in December. Olivia and I will be available. We'll discuss that with all of you. I'm also pleased to report that we are definitely fully staffed and hired our final teaching assistant actually today. That position became vacant when we hired one of our TAs to become a kindergarten teacher. I do want to say, I've said it privately, I'll say it publicly, that Dr. Z has done really a Herculean job this summer and has shepherded the hiring of over 40 instructional appointments this year. So good work, well done. It was a pleasure to do that with you. This year we'll dig much more deeply into our strategic plan with a specific focus on some of the foci that we will be zeroing in on this year is how time is used at each of the levels of the system, developing our K-12 STEAM program, publishing our equity story, creating a mentoring program for new families, ensuring that all 2,690 of those students have a trusted adult within the system, and making meaningful enhancements to our ability to meet all of the social emotional needs of our students. We also have some really cool programming that got started. So we have a dance program that's up and running at the high school that started out with, if you remember back in the spring, we talked about how we were struggling with some enrollment there. We co-seeded that with phys ed, and once we did that, it made a big difference. I think there are 14, 15 students now who are coming at very early in the morning, and they are dancing their hearts out, and it's quite wonderful to see. We also have a new health and wellness teacher at the elementary level, a new counselor at the elementary level, a new coding teacher at the middle school. So there are some really key strategic new programs that are happening over the course of the program. We will be reporting out to you on those as we move forward. Please be sure to join me next week at our new family welcome reception that's scheduled for Monday evening, 7 p.m. It's in the high school cafeteria. Hopefully it'll be a nice evening and we can be a little inside outside. And then the first Bond Community Forum is scheduled for next week on Wednesday at 10 a.m. And that will be here in this room. library. Okay, so we'll have much more information coming out about that, but thank you very much, and thank you to the board for your good support of our work, and we are ready for a really terrific instructional launch.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll move on next to regular business. We are having a discussion and summary of the final scope of the proposed bond.
Great.
Again.
Okay, so
To
the
you.
board will have bound copies of. Everybody should have that. Okay. Shelley, you have the hard copies of stuff to put out? Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. So if anybody's interested in some copies of what we are going to be talking about, we have them right here. Thank you, Shelley. Go? Yes? Okay, sorry. All right, so this bond process started, believe it or not, in the spring before I was even your superintendent. We were talking about thoughts of a bond and how to use some retired debt that was falling off, and how the board had some ideas about how to use that funding. And as we came together as a team, we talked about the debt service that would be collectively falling off, and the timing of that, and how the use of that funding fit into a larger master plan of instructional needs, infrastructure needs, health and safety and wellness. And so that is where the seeds of this started to grow. Over the course of the last couple of years, we have been really thinking about who we are, what we need, who we want to be, and what we need to do in order to invest in our schools for the next 100 years. What would be bold and what would be impactful. And so we looked at that debt, and we have three large pieces of debt that are falling off. And if you layer those together and you stage those over time, essentially the tax neutral impact of that allows us to borrow upwards of $40 million. And so this is an enormous opportunity for the district, for us to be able to do something that will really impact teaching and learning, infrastructure, health and wellness, safety, security across all the facilities. It is for some places a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be able to do something of this magnitude without having a tax impact. So, through the course of our study, we came together initially with a slate of projects that totaled, I think, $80 million. We have about $50 to $60 million just in infrastructure projects. If you think about your house and you made a list of all the things that you needed to do, bathrooms, doors, windows, cracks here, whatever it might be, that list would add up pretty quickly. And then you'd think about affordability, and then you would make your priority lists, and then you would start to stage those things out and figure out how you're going to fund those over the course of time. We are no different. We have $250,000 square feet of facilities to maintain, and that costs quite a bit of money. So we have some we have quite a number of aging bathrooms. We have classrooms that need renovation. We have, and we'll go through some of those things at a higher level. But we also have some instructional needs that we wanted to address, and those had to do with our library media centers, that had to do with how space is used, both particularly at the high school and the middle school, how we could do major renovations to the Fine and Performing Arts wing, how to do major renovations to the K-12, the 9 through 12 STEAM hub, how we could address pressing needs for the robotics program, how do we regroup space in more intuitive ways, and so that how do we put secure entrance vestibules on all 5 schools. And then one theme that kept coming up over and over and over and over and over again, and then some more, was Dr. Drizzo, our schools are very hot, and it is not just a cooling issue, but the air quality is, we'd like you to work through how to address some of those air quality issues. So all that together got us to about $80 million. And then we had the hard work of working through what were priority 1. We actually worked through priority 1 through priority 5. And so we actually have, through this process, have a really robust working list of projects. Both John has always had this list, but we have confirmed his list, and that gives us a good working plan for moving forward. So we also did a couple of 2 or 3 forums over the course of last year. We did some survey work. We worked with our faculty and staff and administration on what are the needs. We then brought all of that back to our bond advisory team, who helped us to sort through concepts and ideas and priorities. And so we are here, and with the board's input, we are now here with a bond that is set at $39,899,786. How is that broken out? $19,318,705 are in instructional monies. Infrastructure, $13,565,192. Health, safety, and security, $4,014,787. And air conditioning, $2,709,547, and then some site work, $291,555. So, in addition to that, we have a capital reserve that the community authorized us to access last year, and so, and then we have other projects in there that we will ask the community to authorize us to access this year, and those will fund some air conditioning projects. The middle school locker room renovation, which is in desperate need of a renovation, and the nurses' suite at the Glenhead School, which is probably even in more desperate need for repair. No? Okay.
Someone should have said.
Yeah, it's right. It is pretty bad. So the things that we are putting forward in the projects are the things that we feel have the most impact for teaching and learning, the things that really have the most impact for keeping the infrastructure of the buildings tight and secure, and safe and secure through the safety and security work. So we've had some consultants come in and help us with that. So in our I'll sort of do this in a sort of high level here. And if the board has questions, please ask them. We can definitely talk through them. But in safety and security, we have, like I said, there is approximately $4 million. How is that comprised? $1.5 million of those projects, $1.5 million of those projects, 39% of them are tied to secure entrance vestibules. So at places like the Glenhead School, it is a little easier to build a secure entrance vestibule on the front of the Glenhead School. It is a little bit more complicated at Glenwood Landing, but not as much. At Seacliff, it is it is impossible in the way that the building is currently configured. And at the middle school, we have a plan to move the front entrance to another part on the site to address that. And at the high school, we need to build out the front of the building a little bit to accommodate a vestibule. So there's some construction involved in making that happen. We've had a consultant come in and take a look at all of our exterior doors, all of our hardware, all of our interior doors, all of the locking mechanisms, and so you will see through the lines of the bond areas where those kinds of things are replaced or corrected. There is card access system that is robust across the exterior card system across the district. We have some intrusion detection systems and visitor management systems that are coming through. So those are the big drivers within the category. When you start to get into the instructional costs, it starts to get a little broader, right? So we're talking about I lost the number here. We're talking about altogether $19 million worth of projects. So half of the project is classified towards instructional projects, which is great. Each of the elementary schools will receive full renovations to the library and media centers, and they will all get STEAM labs for all of the students. There is some of the, and it involves all of the casework, which is all the furniture that you see around the room. The middle school gets not a gut renovation to the library, but a pretty significant renovation. And this room here that we're sitting in now gets total gut renovation with access to the courtyard for students to have egress out there. And it will be secure because we are building a connecting corridor from either side of those doors behind me. So this building dead ends on both ends, and so you lose instructional time in moving around. Same thing happens at the middle school. So we have plans to bring the building together into a loop, and by doing that, there is some, and to the extent that we have supplemental monies that we can use, there are projects that are designed to put extra classroom space on that connecting corridor, particularly at this building. So in addition to that, at this building here, if you go down to the where the tech lab, the wood shop is, there's a math lab in there that should not be next to a wood shop, and there's a world language lab in there, and so that whole circular area there, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll come on one of my tours and I will show you. That whole circular area there will become a STEAM center where kids will be able to, there'll be a coding room, there'll be a robotics space, there'll be an innovation place for innovation. There will be the world language lab will move to where the world language classrooms are, and so they'll be in closer proximity to those classrooms. And then the fine and performing arts wing, the band room, the chorus room, the orchestra room will all get new space for kids to have their ensemble work in. The orchestra space is the former community alumni room or community room? Alumni room, right? Alumni room. And so that's the orchestra room, and it's configured in a weird way for kids to be on instruments, so our architects have helped us to reframe that. Also, we have renovation of classroom spaces, and so particularly Glenwood Landing, where we have our largest elementary student population. We have service providers who are sharing classrooms that are carved up, and we need those classrooms. So we have some what CS Arch has, Olivia and I talk about this all the time, what CS Arch has done brilliantly for us is the way they utilize space and see spaces is has been really helpful to us in how we allocate even the space that we currently have. At the middle school, also dead ends on either side. So if you've ever gone to back to school night for your sons or your daughters, you know that you have 4 minutes sometimes to get from over the river and through the woods, up the stairs, around the deck, all the way around the corner. So it can be a bit of a slog. We are talking through, and so in between, and also the middle school does not have a formal main entrance. You come up through the side, you come into a main hallway, and then you have to walk down the hall to get to the main office. The current bond, our plan is to build a connection between where the library is on one side of the building to where the current fax room and cafeteria is. So there's that sloped hill in between the two sides of the building. So that will get a 2-story connector with a great big open space for kids to and a leveled. I don't know what are we calling that? Like the staging. Like an atrium, right? Yes. And so atrium with seating, both flexible, so there'll be like cafeterias, table seating, and there's also graded seating, so we can do some small and medium group instruction in there as well. Fax will move to a different part of the building, and that's where the main office will be. So that will become the hub of the middle school. And so you'll have the cafeteria there, the main office there, the entry, and there will be a brand new STEAM lab that will be right up those stairs as well. A couple of science rooms that are in need of renovation at the middle school as well. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. And the libraries, as the libraries are redesigned, the library is going to be redesigned. We've given the architects very clear direction that we have very significant libraries by way of collections, and that we want to maintain a lot of books in our libraries. There are some schools who are moving more towards digital materials. I'm with you. We want to keep we want to keep the print. We want to keep lots and lots of print materials. So, and we've actually just made major investments in each of the school libraries by ways of collection. So the way the libraries are designed to be is that they will have lots of stacks for books, but they will also have flexible seating. They will also have breakout areas. So it will. So we want kids in libraries, and we want them. This is actually, believe it or not, during the day, a very busy place. There are lots of kids in here, and it's not necessarily a super quiet place. It doesn't have to be a super quiet place, but there ought to be places in libraries that are quiet, right? So, they are designed to have big open spaces, but they're also designed to have. So if you go in a college library, you'll see that there are smaller rooms, that you can see for supervision. Each of the 5 libraries will have those kinds of spaces in them, so we can use them for kids to work in small group, teachers to work with kids in small group, but also have flexible space in a larger space to collaborate. Questions? Okay. Infrastructure, lots of bathrooms, not all bathrooms, but lots of bathrooms that need to be done, either gut renovations or lighter renovations. We are putting single-use bathrooms in all of the schools, so students can, have a more private bathroom to use if they choose to use it. We are putting in interior door replacements, door frames, paging systems, and that pretty much the infrastructure work. Some faculty room space that is in not so great shape. Expanding the fire alarm system at the middle school and at the high school to accommodate the additions of space. Lastly, we have health and safety and security projects. So I've talked to you about the secure entrance vestibules. We've talked about exterior doors. We've talked about video surveillance. We've talked about intrusion detection. We've talked about visitor management. We are also trying to get air conditioning in the projects, and so we have a energy performance contract that we are going to take the next step in exploring how to make this work. But in the savings of energy, lighting, and controls and solar, and taking out the window units that exist, particularly on the middle and high schools, where we have, I think it's 98 window units. Taking those out and converting them into split units is more efficient. And so we are able to centrally cool the middle school and the high school through the energy performance contract that is not included in the scope of the bond. So we're able to do about, I think it's $5.7 million worth of work through the energy performance contract, and we use the savings that are gained from the energy performance to fund the new things that go in. Okay. We will then, how will we cool the elementaries? We're going to take all those 98 window units and we're going to move them to the elementaries. It was just too costly to centrally cool all 5 facilities. We have some monies set aside to look at high need areas. So some of the rooms that are on top, third floors, or they're south facing, they don't have, shade tree coverage. Those spaces, we do have funding for each school to fund split units in those spaces as an initial start. To the extent that we have additional monies available, we'll come to the board and we'll have we'll be having conversations about what supplemental projects are the most important. But that's a huge opportunity for us to be able to get all of the instructional spaces in all 5 schools cooled, and it was a major priority for lots of folks. So that is basically the scope. We will be spending lots of time getting people informed and aware. That will start next week with community forums. We're going to do one in the morning next week. Shelley and I have been working on a flyer card to send out in the mail, so people will know what's happening. We'll have bus tours. We'll have roving. I'll be giving presentations in each of the different schools. They won't be only about that school. So if I'm going to the Seacliff School, it's because I want to be in all 5 schools, but I will be talking about the full scope for everybody. So if you're a Glen Head resident or a Glenwood Landing resident, you should be welcome to come to any and all. And then we're just working out a Saturday bus tour as well. So if you need a break from soccer or lacrosse, I'm your guy. Okay. And I think that covers everything I needed to do with the board this evening. But we are proposing December 10, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we hope that you will take some time to get informed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate that detailed description of the bond that we're proposing, because the board will vote later in the meeting on the legal notice for that. But I also, I really have to thank the trustees for putting in a tremendous amount of time into laying this out, in particular the last working meeting that you had and the input everybody put in to the bond so that we got to this point. Thank you. It was a huge amount of work.
It was. And I did forget to mention I apologize, I did forget to mention at the high school, the renovation of the high school men's and women's locker rooms. That was a big ad that we worked in with the board's help and at the beginning of August.
Right, which was important to the board, and we appreciate
Right.
the efforts of the professional staff too in being able to figure out how we could get that in.
Great. Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay. Everyone feels that was thorough description? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are we ready to move on to
I think so.
comments from the public? All right, moving on to comments from the public. If anyone's here that wishes to address the board, we are more than happy to hear your questions and concerns. If you would just kindly approach the microphone and give us your name and town of residence. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to see if
Better?
on and turned up. I just want to make sure people can hear
No.
you. Thanks, Denise.
Could you just forgive my ignorance? What's a soft cost? And can you explain to me? I've just been hearing some of my SEPTA family talking about a testing room that was going to be renovated or put in, and now it's out. Can you tell us what that is all about?
Oh, please. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll start with the testing room, and then I'm going to turn this, Olivia, I'm going to turn the soft cost discussion over to you because I don't want to miss the components of that, okay? The testing room, when we had originally scoped this project, we had the plan to put the secure entrance vestibule on the front of the high school was much more significant than what it is now. The entire canopy, that long canopy that's out there, that was going to be demolished and totally redone. To accommodate the secure entrance vestibule, which was going to take the main office from where it currently is and flip it essentially to the other side of the hallway. Okay? And so what that enabled us to do was capture the space between the red wall where all the teacher mailboxes are, right? Essentially all the way down through the guidance suite, right? To really renovate, have a lot of different open space there to manage. It was a really cool opportunity, except that it was incredibly expensive. And so to do the canopy work, right? So keeping the canopy the way it is, right, and reskinning that in a way that modernizes it, right, but also was able to accommodate the secure entrance vestibule popping out from the front doors of the high school there. So there will be the way this is envisioned to work is that if you walk straight under the canopy, straight back, there will be the students will enter straight through. Visitors will have a separate entrance to the left where there will be a security booth there and double doors to get into the high school. The change of the canopy, and we were trying to figure out how to get the locker rooms in at the high school because the locker room renovation was $4.1 or $4.2 million. We needed to find some efficiencies in the scope of the bond, and so we changed the secure entrance vestibule at the high school, and we opted not to totally renovate the canopy. And by doing that, it saved about $2.3 million that it freed up in the project. And so at the end of the day, when we thought about where's the most value in spending dollars, we decided to put it in the locker rooms where every single student at the high school would benefit from that, and the canopy was not going to get us there. The testing room is an issue that requires attention, but it doesn't need to be addressed in the bond. We will address it outside the bond. Okay. So it's not that the testing room. So some of the spaces that we are looking to use differently, for example. Yep, totally. right? So there's you'll see when you start to get some of the print materials on this, you'll see that there are essentially what we're trying to do is keep the humanities in a section of the building and the math and sciences in a section of the building. And so that's created some opportunities for us to use space a little bit differently. And then when we think about how, so the counseling office will not get like a super expansive renovation, but it will get renovated. There are opportunities for us to use that space. So the testing room, you won't see the testing room as a line, right, in the bond, but it is very much a priority to get done. Does that answer the question? All right, well, thank you. Okay.
Soft cost.
And then soft cost, Olivia. So
Yeah.
just how is that constructed?
The soft cost is anything that is not part of the construction cost. And the construction cost is electrical, plumbing, the main construction, HVAC, all those pieces are the hard cost. Anything aside from that is referred to as the soft cost. And it includes the architect fee, the construction management fee. Those are the people who oversee the project, make sure that the contractors are following all the specification on the drawing, and they sit here with them more or less babysitting the job. In addition to that, there's a cost to borrowing the money. Example of it is on the board agenda today. We need the bond council to structure the debt to make sure that we are following all the state guidelines when we go to borrow. And it is likely that we'll be borrowing in phases because we want to make sure that it's fed into the budget in a very smooth way. So we'll be going maybe 2 or 3 times. All those things have cost to them. Then we have the fiscal advisor, and the fiscal advisor is the person who structures the debt, and the bond council makes sure that they are complying with all the rules that the state tell us we have to follow. In addition to that, we have to do some testing. Even sometimes we have custodians doing work. Sometimes at the end of a project, we have to get custodians. We have to bring our custodians in to clean up at the end of the project. All those costs are part of the soft cost. Sometimes we have to do testing. We have to bring cranes here to test the soil. All those things are part of the soft cost. Sometimes it also involves equipment. Those are all part of the soft costs that are included in a project. It's very extensive. But the 2 main ones are the architect fees and construction management fee.
Well, and that's also where you put the escalation fees in as well.
Correct.
Right? So here we are, we're in September 2019, right? Some of the parts, the components of this project will not happen until the summer of 22 or 23, right? Summer 23 is some of the phasing on this. And so we have to accommodate for the rising cost of construction, materials. There are contingencies that we have to build into our planning. So, for example, the cost of steel can go up or go down, and if it goes up, based on the cost that we use now, we still need the steel. So, and we only have X number of dollars. So there is some of that built into the formula as well.
Anyone who approaches the podium while public comment is open can ask questions. By all means. It doesn't look like anybody's going to wrestle you.
So with the soft costs, we'll be spending that and taking it out over the years, and we'll know at that time, in time, what that cost will be. Do our trustees review this when you get the prices for these soft costs, and do they approve, or once the bond goes through, are the architects and Olivia, do you guys just, it's been approved and we go ahead?
No.
We're going through an extensive process. We'll be talking to them, we'll be negotiating with them each step of the way to make sure that it's competitive.
Yeah. And the trustees review it? Thank you.
And we keep a record of all the money as we go along in our books. And every month, when we present the treasurer's report to the board, we give them a statement of what we have expended up to that point in time.
Thank you. Thank you, Olivia. Do we have anyone else for public comment? It is open public comment on any topic. Thank you for asking.
Hi, my name is Brendan Mitchell. I live in Seacliff. I actually have a couple comments that I wanted to make tonight, so I don't know if it would be better if I address one, and you just tell me when to be quiet, basically. The first thing I wanted to do, and you'll see a couple of members of our homework committee are here as well. We actually wanted to thank the board for the policy revision on homework. We think it reflects not only our year-long work on reviewing homework, but it also values the current research and data on homework. So we do appreciate that you listened and heard us, and it made us feel like, you know, our time was well spent. I think it's difficult to design a perfect policy on homework. As I know, you know, for as many parents there are out there like me who would prefer no homework ever, there are just as many, like I said before, who probably are asking every day for more. So thank you for that. We did have a couple questions, or I had a couple questions, I don't want to speak for everybody, related to the homework policy. What is the plan or the process for, I guess, getting this information to administrators, to teachers, kind of related to the new policy? I know, you know, handbooks that went out a month ago are contradictory with what the policy actually says now. So I didn't know if there was a plan kind of related to that information. And one other part of our suggestion, I think, in our policy review was talk of maybe some professional development for teachers related to how to get beyond homework, or how to do more than just, you know, relying on the homework assignment. It's a difficult task, I know, and I know there's not an answer tonight, but I just wanted to kind of put it back on the table for some discussion, I guess, internally on how we can, you know, kind of keep working on it. There is one line of the policy that makes me cringe a little bit, in that it all comes down to teacher discretion. So it's all for naught, you know, if a teacher's discretion is I'm still going to give 3 hours of homework a night, then that's the policy. So overall, you know, appreciative, very thankful for everything that you heard and did, but there are, I guess, a couple lingering concerns. Should I move to my next comment, or?
Do you want, if you'd like to address it, please do. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So we're all prepared to answer some of that tonight. All right. The reason why some of the handbooks and things are out of date is because they have to go to print at a certain time, or we miss a window of printing a handbook. So that's the reason for that. The board approved the policy at their August 29 meeting. Thank you.
And the policy reviews take multiple meetings.
So since that time, we have been talking about how to communicate this out to teachers in a way that makes sense. So Carol Smythe and Seth Gordon, who you spent a lot of time working with, right, have been working with Dr. Z on the communication. Do you want to speak to that for a second? Yeah.
So we are actually about to kick this off. We're working with administrators on Tuesday. We have our folk group admin meeting and our principal cabinet meeting. So today, actually, I spoke with all of the principals, just informally talking about their thoughts on how best to roll this out, questions that might arise. I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the complexities of rolling out a policy such as this. I think especially in the secondary schools where you have such a diversity of courses, and it is going to be a year of learning and learning how best to coordinate. And so that's how we're going to approach it. On Tuesday, after our meeting on Tuesday, we are going to send a communication out to faculty and staff.
Thank you. I don't envy your position for Tuesday.
People are more on board than you think.
Good.
The,
That's wonderful.
Did you,
Yeah.
did either of you have something on the I thought the professional development question was an interesting.
So part of our communication on Tuesday will include substantial research that will support the reason for the policy changes that will go out to all of the teachers and administrators. So, so in addition to here's what you got to do, we'll be providing them with here's why we made this shift. And then the principals and the directors will build as part of their PD plans over the course of the year, regular check-ins and monitoring on the implementation. Because the truth is, in the implementation, right, we may need to rethink some of how it is implemented. And we have to get the voice of our teachers in knowing that. But we had to start. So thank you for getting us to a place where we could start.
Thanks. Overall, I think we were appreciative, but don't give up the fight, I guess, is kind of the message there. So, sorry to take more time. The other reason I'm here tonight is to speak briefly about lunch. I have some real serious concerns about the time allotted for students to eat, at least in the elementary level. I know that an attempt was made to provide students with more time to play. And that's an admirable goal. I think it's an important one, but I'm worried that the real point of the shift was lost, and that time was taken seemingly from students' lunch. Students, at least at my children's school, at Seacliff School, are now being allotted 20 minutes for lunch, and that, of course, is not inclusive of or it is inclusive of the transition time to lunch from recess. And I'm assuming for cleanup time and lineup time, not including, the time that it takes students to wait in line and get lunch. So when you take 20 minutes and include, getting them in line, getting them their lunch, getting them sat down, and getting them to eat and then getting them cleaned up, I don't think it's hyperbole to say there's kids who have maybe 10 minutes to eat, maybe less than 10 minutes to eat, and to me that's really troubling. Obviously for the main reason of they're not getting enough food, but also I'm sure if you look in those trash cans, how much food is being wasted as well. So I would just ask, and again, I know there's no answers tonight, that we kind of think about that time. 20 minutes to me, and I'm sorry, like it does not seem like enough time for a child to eat lunch. And I have 2 children who come home incredibly hungry, incredibly cranky, and that changes the evening a little bit, as I'm sure you all know. So I would just ask if you could maybe get back, maybe at a principals meeting or at some other kind of get together where we can kind of look at those times. Not to make it too much about me, but I have an 8-year-old who is in 3rd grade, and she doesn't eat lunch until 1:25 in the afternoon, which again, she starts her day. She's there at 8:10, 8:15. And I know they have snack, and that's wonderful, but not eating lunch as an 8-year-old until 1:25 just doesn't seem like good practice. So I would just ask if you could maybe kind of go back and reflect on that a little bit and see if there's anything that we could do differently in that process. So thank you so much for your time.
Yes, please. I felt like, I didn't think the recess came from lunch. I thought lunch had always been 20 minutes was my question, but
I
this
think it was
is
a little longer.
absolutely an ongoing concern for years that we haven't found a fix.
Yep. So you are right. There were a couple of things that we were trying to accomplish. One was, and we have been hearing, this is not the first time that I'm hearing about this since the opening of school. We were trying to give kids more time to be outside, have unstructured time. Glenwood Landing had some really nice success with having the kids play and then eat. So they were having, like lunch periods that were less frenetic because.
And based on research.
Yes,
They
and
had
based on
very
research.
good
Yep.
data to say they should try that.
So part of what, so we know that this is not working in all circumstances. So part of what we will do with our team on Tuesday is talk through, how is this happening? What tweaks can be made? It was working pretty nicely over at Glenwood Landing. It's new to Seacliff and to Glen Head. Not all schedules function in the same way, so we'll talk about it and see to the extent that we need to make some, tweaks, we will absolutely do that. I don't know if I can address the 1:30 lunch right now, but I will make sure that I have a conversation with principals about it. You're welcome.
And I think it's going to take some real innovation because of that tension between making lunches longer but not wanting them to start
Correct.
too early and too late. But
Correct.
I
Yeah.
have some thoughts.
Okay. I'd love to hear them.
Thank you.
I also have second grader in Seacliff, and was also on the homework committee, so I really just want to echo what Brendan said, in that I was really pleased to see that the homework policy was adopted and it's revised form, and thank you for supporting us on that. I also am, a little bit worried about the implementation of it, about getting that information out to the teachers, about teacher buy-in specifically, and just the consistency across grade level. I think that, I can't remember if it's stayed in, but one of the things that we talk a lot about is just consistency. So I'm just wondering if you have specific, in your training of the teachers and in your PD, if you will, figure out a way to have all the teachers in a certain grade talk to each other so that they are giving similar types of homework. Because, from what I've seen so far, and I only have a second grader, teachers have very, very different views on what is appropriate, what isn't. You could have, I don't have twins, but you could have one kid in one class in, the same grade and another, and they are getting completely different homework. So I'm hoping that this homework policy does streamline it a little bit, but also gives the teachers a chance to do the same thing when it comes to homework. And that's not really-
Well, we happen to agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I do agree with Brendan about the timing on the recess. I've been asking for more recess for 2 years since I met you, Peter. I've been asking for
I know I've been trying to get it.
I'm so pleased to see that they have an extra 5 minutes, but I think taking it away from lunch is just really difficult for
Mm.
young children.
We're going to take a look at it.
Thank you.
Given the magnitude of the bond, the timing of the vote, just wondering if any effort can be made to make absentee ballots a little more accessible, especially to senior members of our community who might not be in town in December, or who might not be able to get to the polls due to weather. Don't know how December could be, it could be nice, it could be very poor. But I think it's important that we reach out to that segment of the population to allow them the opportunity to get absentee ballot maybe, if they didn't make it to the election, either working through the civic associations, the senior groups in town, the Rotary, Elgin Legion, et cetera. Just wondering if we could possibly do that.
Thank you. I think you're absolutely right about making those easily accessible to everyone. It is a two-step process. There are a number of citizens who, because of disability status, will automatically get a ballot mailed to them. So we're very proactive in that regard. Thank you, Betty. When we do mailings to every resident of the district, it will be very clear how to get that, and that involves a phone call, and we will mail them the application. They don't have to come in, they don't have to do anything. But likewise, for people for whom it's easier to get it in other ways, the application itself can be posted online. We put it in all the school offices. So we're going to provide people with a variety of ways, and our communications with the district will make those very clear and as easy as possible. It's the same thing with the voting hours, right? We have the most extensive voting hours imaginable from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. because we are deeply committed to letting everyone vote. And likewise, you can see in the rental of the voting machines, in making sure we have machines that are particularly accessible to disabled voters on the premises too, to make sure everyone can vote.
You know, in prior years, we used to have the PTOs pass out the absentee ballot applications at their meetings. I would suggest that we do the same with the PTOs and go to the senior center has a meeting, I think, on Fridays at noon, where we could provide them. You have the veterans that have a regularly scheduled meeting that you can provide the absentee ballots there, mutual concerns, the Lions, the Kiwanis. We could put some in the library, the Gold Coast Library. I mean, there are ways to get those absentee ballots out that, really should be explored that I think we just have not been doing.
And likewise, making sure everyone's registered, right? Not
Right.
everyone has lived in the district for forever, and we should think about all these pieces to make sure the election's accessible to everyone, because clearly not everyone votes in any of our elections. Not just our elections, I mean, America's elections. Thank you, Rob. Do we have anyone else?
Hi, I'm White. I just wanted to say thank you for the homework policy. I just wanted to add one thing. We, in many conversations, we were faced with some teachers that were resisting or sort of didn't know how this would look in the classroom because they don't know how they would fit into a schedule, a typical day. And so I thought that it might be worthwhile in professional development to sort of show them successful models or invite speakers to come in, teachers who were successful in this type of policy. I remember many years ago when we did Race to Nowhere, I think we were seeing on film, some teachers that were successful, even, one teacher I'm most concerned with, level in high school, PY teacher, explaining how this works for him and how the students are being successful in their homework. So, I think that might be effective in helping to get teachers to sort of get on board and see that it can be a reality and not necessarily seeing students as a loss.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have anybody else? Going once? All right. Thank you all for participating. We appreciate it. We will move on with the business items. We're up to action item B, which is personnel. Do I have a motion? Motion. Do I have a second? All in favor? Thank you, trustees. Sorry, it's taking me a minute to flip my pages. Action item C is the acceptance of a donation from the Seacliff PCA to the Seacliff Elementary School of a outdoor bench to be installed in the garden in honor of their former principal, Dr. Christopher Zublionis. I'm not sure. Do I
Wow, you
have a
didn't even
motion?
have to retire for that one. Lori had to retire.
Do I have a motion? Motion. And I have a second. Do we have any questions or comments?
They love their Dr. Z.
They love their Dr. Z. I'm excited about the new bench. All in favor? Action item D is the resolution of the district to set the vote for the bond. Could I first get a motion to waive a complete reading of the 4-page notice? Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments?
Is it legal to do that?
It is. It is.
Yes.
It is not legal not to make the motion and then not read it,
Okay.
as we learned from Jack at an earlier meeting. Thank you, Mr. Feldman. All in favor? Okay, I will now call for a motion on action item D, which is the resolution on the bond vote. Do I have a motion? And I believe I have a second. Questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think $40 million is a very big ask for this community. I can't say that anything in this bond is bad. You know, it's all good news. It's all improvements to our educational system. But I feel that our process, and I hope that we're going to do a better job in terms of communicating, wasn't as inclusive as it could have been. The committee didn't really have any senior citizens on it, didn't have any low-income people on it. It didn't have any people whose children graduated the schools for input on the bond. And I think if you're really, you know, one of the pillars of our strategic plan is equity. And if you really want it to have equity and show equity in action, we would have had better representation of input from other sectors of the community than the faculty and staff and parents in the school. Every time we raise taxes, every time we do that, it gets more and more difficult for people on fixed income to live here. Every time we do that, it gets more and more difficult for children who've graduated from here to buy back into this community. Every time we do that, I see more and more of the members of this community who raise their children here with my children leave. And it's not just here. I mean, it's across, you know, the New York metropolitan area. I mean, we're not special. But it is a concern, you know, and I think process-wise, when we're talking about budgets and bonds, I think moving forward, we should make a better effort to reach out to those communities. You know, for me personally, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm going to stay here, you know, I can do that, but not everyone is that fortunate. And we do have, you know, American Water, the taxes that are being passed through are just astronomical. The bills are crazy. So I just want to make sure we're sensitive to those communities moving forward, and that we really reach out to them and get their input on this. I don't want a bond to be a lightning rod in this community, right? I mean, I think so many things in the bond are good, like the media center here, I believe will, you know, bring more children, keep more students on campus, which is what we, you know, what we want. STEAM rooms, it's, you know, it's all good, but you know, there's only so much people will tolerate. So I'm hoping that we'll do some outreach.
I think, right, I think those are important points to make, and I think you and the entire board were clear about the importance of the tax neutral aspect of the bond, and that was clear. I do think there was more income diversity on the bond committee than was obvious in a lot of ways, but I think your point about the seniors is certainly,
Or families whose children have graduated, like me.
I think those are well made. And I mean, people did, you know, it was an open process and people applied for it, but nonetheless,
I'm not sure how open our communications are, because when we had the thought exchange, you know, it's only people who were signed up for the emails, which may not be people whose kids are graduated or senior citizens. So I think we could have done more boots on the ground in terms of getting more community involvement.
yes. Other questions or comments before we vote? Okay. All in favor of the bond resolution? Thank you, trustees. We will see you all on December 10th, all 6 of you. Action item E is the authorization to amend the budget to appropriate monies from the workers' compensation reserve to pay a workers' compensation claim because we are self-insured. Do I have a motion? Motion. Do I have a second? Does anyone have questions on this item? All in favor? Thank you. Action F is an approval to dispose of inventory. Motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor? G is the approval of the agreement between North Shore and Webcola Media that runs our website. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Action H approves purchase contracts based on competitive bidding for a number of vendors. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second? All in favor? Thank you. I is the approval of the agreement between North Shore and LIU Post to use their pool for our swim team. Do we have a motion? Second? Questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's a contract price of $12,000 and change for the pool rental, but there are a number of other items on that contract, maintenance, security, filming, AV technology, that are on an hourly basis. Do we have any concept, because I know this is the first time we're using this facility, of what that's going to run us and if we're required to do it? Because it seems to be discretionary at Post that they can bill us for it. Like if they have to clean up after us, they can bill us.
There were a lot of things in that contract that is, if you do this, then you have to pay this. And because this is the first time we are using it, and sometimes we are very restricted when it comes to the pools, it's very difficult to get one. So when we get one and it's open to us, we just have to.
I know, we've had this problem in the past. This is probably the third or fourth facilities, because
Yes, yes.
we used Hofstra, we
We use
used
the yacht
a
club.
club, and we used the one over on Northern Boulevard, the
Just-
JVC, thank you.
It's very difficult to find a spot. So it's like, because we don't have our own pool.
Right,
which is
Eisenhower
ex-
Park, we
yeah.
used to.
We've been
Is it
going
too
all
late
over
to
the
add a
place
pool
looking
to
for
the
pools.
bond?
I wish we can build one ourselves.
Oh, no. The insurance and liability on that was the auxiliary gym, actually was supposed to be the
Yeah.
pool.
Interesting. I was going to say, there's a pond, scutters. Think about it. All right.
Yeah, I know, but I just seem very amorphous.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on it.
All right. I think we're ready to vote on the pool agreement. All in favor? Thank you. All right, we'll combine actions J through Q, which are all providing services to students per their IEPs. That's J through Q. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
A second? All questions? Trustee?
Nope, I thought we were voting.
Oh, sorry,
I was
all in
ahead of
favor?
myself, I'm getting out of here.
Sorry, well, you started to go up, and I'm like, oh, no, I'm going too fast. All in favor? Thank you. Action R is the resolution directing an employee to report for a medical examination. Do I have a motion? Motion. Second?
Second,
All in favor? Action S is the adoption of the district goals that we discussed last time. Do I have a motion? Second? Questions or conversation about the goals? All in favor? Thank you. Action T is the resolution select an energy service company for the comprehensive energy audit. I cannot speak, I apologize, audit. This is the EPC that we are looking at in conjunction with the bond. Do I have a motion? And I think I have a second. Questions, comments? Trustee?
I just want to make sure that we're clear that we're only authorizing them to do the energy audit.
Correct.
And that's not going to be at any cost to us, correct? And that we have the discretion of proceeding with them or not based upon negotiating the fee structure of that contract.
That is correct.
Okay.
Correct, trustee, thank you. All in favor? You're enthusiastic, right? Okay, and then finally, action U is the approval of the agreement with NYSET Education Learning Trust for professional development. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second? questions? All in favor? We move on to our next public comment section. Questions or comment from the public? If you would kindly approach the podium and give us your name and your town of residence, we are at your disposal. Okay, thank you. We will move on to old business,
I have old business.
please.
I wanted to follow up on where we are in our application process for a civic member to a community member to be on the construction steering committee, and also our new LAC member applications.
I have the drafts for you. I'll hand them out. I think they are, and then read them at your leisure. If you have any comments over the next couple of days, if you would email me and Shelley, that would be
Okay.
wonderful. That's a mailer. There's the mailer, and then, so there are three different things. So there's the mailer, and then there are the actual applications that will be in all the offices and online. And I can't swear you won't find a typo, so please, feel free. That's the audit. One, oh, here's some. I'm not even counting them out of this one. This is the construction steering. And then this is legislative action. The audit and the LAC applications, as far as I know, are strikingly similar to what we've used in the past. And we set up construction to mirror audit because of the professional qualifications.
And how
So
many,
you should all have,
do you know how
this-
many positions we're looking to fill on LAC?
One,
One?
up to one.
and that is vague so far as I know in the materials, because we didn't know at the time that we wrote them, and I'm sometimes not convinced it won't continue to shift.
There was one member who had not heretofore replied to his or her participation for this year, and that person has since replied in the affirmative. So we have 8, and our new bylaws say up to 9.
Let us know if we've ever
Okay.
looked something or, yeah.
And this is a great opportunity with talking about trying to outreach to the community for those folks who know people who might be interested. Every walk of every corner of the community. You're going to get these in the mail. You can make photocopies. You can pass them around. Let people know.
In the same spirit of wrapping up some loose ends, can I just also ask the board briefly about the board retreat that we're now looking at for October 27th? We originally put out a time for 9:30 to 12:30. For various reasons, we're now trying to see if we could start earlier. Yes?
I'll do whatever the,
Earlier the better. Whatever you need.
How early are people willing to start? Because we have some people with some commitments that will happen later. I thought most of you.
How's 8 a.m.? 8 a.m. okay?
8 seems pretty tight. I thought I could get most people to agree to 9.
Well, what was the
I
original
thought-
time?
I thought originally it was 9:30 to 12:30. I thought I could easily just sort of like change it to 9 and people might not even notice. 8:30 I wasn't sure. Hey, and Jack's got to come.
No, no, absolutely not. So?
We remember, we're gonna put you on.
Isn't it in the
earlier.
retainer?
You know,
I think it's in the
you're not
retainer,
gonna be
right?
last on the agenda this time. Really, Dave. It's Dave.
I was the one who asked for an earlier time. Whatever you want to do is fine.
We could
Okay,
do
I can
8:30.
adjust.
I am
That's-
free.
I will
at any
adjust.
time that day.
8:30. We'll get all this in it.
I'll be wherever you need me.
You can do it. We won't go to 8. 6. Rachel, yeah, Rachel's really extremely accommodating.
Why don't we do 8:30? Because
8:30?
by the time everyone gets their coffee and whatever, you're not starting.
Look, we don't sleep well anymore. We're up, right? All right, so we're now at 8:30 to
8:30 sharp.
11:30. Sharp.
All right.
You don't have to be sharp. Yes, please.
The retreat is a retreat and not a work session?
It's a retreat.
It is a retreat, yes. By which, for the audience, retreat does not mean retreat. It means, we have to discuss the inner workings of the board in a small, dimly lit, closed conference room for several hours with the attorney. But, other old business.
I've got a few pieces of old business.
Thanks.
At the last meeting, we had approved the Greenkill contract, and I wanted to follow up on the chaperoning costs.
Yes.
I'm glad you did.
And then I have a follow-up to that, I guess.
Okay, because you have something you mentioned.
I do. I have a whole,
You got a whole,
I have a whole mess of old business to zip up with all of you.
okay.
So the Greenkill costs in 17-18 were looking at this backwards, 290. We put the wrong years in, right? So I got to read this backwards. So 17-18, it was 290. 18-19, they went up to $340 because that accommodated the inclusion of the bus in the chaperoning fees. And this year, we estimate them to be about $281
That's the cost per student,
per student for everything.
for everything. But what does the district pay in terms of chaperoning fee? Or, excuse me, what do the students pay in terms of, what percentage of that is, and what would be, because the issue that I had raised is that it is instructional. I mean, it's consistent with the shared value outcomes, collaboration, communication, problem solving. That's what they're doing on the trip. So that it is an extension of instruction. And I don't think it's an enormous expense to the district, but regardless of that, just as a matter of principle, I think that it's the district that ought to be paying for that.
Okay, just give me a second. No, I brought this with me. Just bear with me 1 second, Tim, I'm sorry. You have it? You have the worksheet? So we consider the trip to be supplemental to the curriculum, not a part of the curriculum. So that is why it gets passed along to parents.
Why is that, though? Because I thought Tim's point was interesting.
There's nothing in the core. The standards in the core curriculum are not specifically addressed in Greenkill, right? So lots of good things come out of it. That's why we do it. Particularly, especially related to the shared valued outcomes. But you can't point to, like in the social studies curriculum, these things are being taught through the Greenkill trip. Does that make sense? Like it doesn't support a novel that or a unit of study that we are specifically
So it comes
working
down to
towards.
what we're calling curriculum? Like SVOs versus like,
Yeah.
So I guess like when you
Social
go
studies.
out to Old Bethpage Village, right, when they're doing colonial studies, right? So that's tied to the curriculum, so you get paid for that.
Right.
Because it's directly tied to what they're learning, the subject matter that's mandated by the state, rather than what we infuse into the curriculum, correct?
Correct. Go ahead, Olivia. I have it in front of me too, but you can take this. So the personnel costs are $26,410. Right.
So it's 165 per student, so more than half the cost for them on this trip is paying the chaperoning.
The whole,
yeah.
the whole trip was passed through BOCES, and we deducted the BOCES pay that is included in it. So this is the base cost, but you have to look at it and take the 45% out for BOCES pay.
That's why the cost of the trip is less this year than it was last year. It had not been, we explored going through, funding it through BOCES, and when you fund it through BOCES, you get aid back on it. We
So
had
the
not
real
been-
cost is really more the 340, which it was last year, correct?
No, it would
It was
be,
originally 4 and change when it was
no,
presented.
it'll be, it'll be $445. $455 if we do it not through BOCES.
Because we didn't do it through BOCES last year, and it was 340?
Yes.
So why would it be over $100 per pupil more this year?
Because you have Article 10. Because the chaperone costs have gone up so significantly.
Are we able to get a legal opinion as to whether this is instructional?
If the board wants us to explore that, we can definitely do that.
I think it's important.
I mean, the point that I was making at last meeting is that, yes, it's always voluntary to go on a trip, but it's voluntary to go to your graduation as well, but you go to your graduation, right? And it's the same idea. It's such a part of the 6th grade experience. It's, socially, it's such an important part of it. I don't know what they do the days, the 20 or so kids who don't go, what they're doing on those days. To me, it just seems that it's an extension of the curriculum and instruction.
I think it's worth looking at. Does anyone other trustees have an opinion on that?
I would agree.
Look at it. Thank you. That's why you make the big bucks, Chuck. That's why you make the big bucks. Yep. Yeah, if you don't mind, we can meet at 8 so we could discuss it. You can meet. We'll get back to you. Tim, did you have more on?
I did. I know in, I guess it was in June, we had approved the appointment of both a varsity coach and a junior varsity coach for field hockey. And, there was changes so that it was an assistant coach, right? Changes where the assistant coach became the varsity coach. But the other position that we had originally approved was never filled. So there is no assistant coach, and it's a very large team. And I'm just wondering if there was a search for another assistant coach to replace the assistant coach who had moved up to varsity. When you have a team that's big and the coach doesn't know the kids, it's useful to have that second set of eyes. And certainly, having a practice with 25 kids to make sure that all the kids are able to participate in a practice, because that size, you're not going to get a lot of participation in games, but to make sure all the kids are participating in practice, it is helpful to have that second coach. And there is no second coach, and we had approved it.
Okay, I'll have to look it up and get back to you.
And my last one was, it's kind of similar to with the homework policy. The question was, how was the message gotten out to teachers with the policy that we approved regarding coaches and trainers coaching their coaching athletes? Has that message gotten out?
So that email is scheduled for tomorrow.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tim. Are there any other trustees with old business?
I have old business.
Thank you.
Regarding the Armory contract that we
Yes.
approved last meeting, but we had questions about assurances from the athletic department regarding one section of the contract, Section X. medical coverage, and I guess that would extend to the daily logs in terms of incident reports. Do we have some assurances from athletics that there'll be a medical personnel in place?
The armor, yes, the armory,
Our meets.
yes, the armory, if we use the armory does not allow us to bring our own medical personnel. We have to contract for we have to use their medical personnel.
That's interesting, because it's
So we don't
not
s-
clear in the contract.
So we don't send, the example he gave was there's the Melrose games,
Yes.
right? We get the same coverage, medical services and coverage for our meet as would happen at a huge meet like the Melrose games. It is provided by the armory.
It's not explicit in the contract, and I think in future contracts, if we could ask for that, or if,
Understood.
because it really isn't clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
And, the process needs to, I think, be held to in terms of treating students, especially a lot of the meets, their evenings. Parents are not going to those
Yes.
meets, so they're not there. I think I was the exception. I went to every darn meet my daughter ran in, so she had a pulmonary event. I was there, and I was able to give permission for treatment. So we need to make sure those processes for our students' safety and well-being is well articulated.
Thank you. Anything else, old? New?
I have some follow-up.
Oh, you have follow-up under old still?
I do.
That trustees
Do it.
raised. Go ahead.
The trustees raised. Yes?
Yes, please.
Okay. So at our last meeting, trustee Commander had asked us how high the current netting on the athletic fields were. That you asked about how high the netting was, okay? The netting and the baseball field is 27 feet high, 100 feet long. There currently is not an overlay. And I wanted to find out how high will it be when it's completed. We're not sure yet. It's still in the design phase, and to the extent that there needs to be an overlay in the new design, there will be. If not, it'll be as high as it needs to be. So that was one thing. It might be. Yeah, it might be. Yeah. I had sent the traffic study to the board this week, so you have that. The homework and tutoring policies we've covered tonight. The green kill costs we've covered tonight.
Thank you.
I will follow up with council on some of those other questions, and we're gonna have to look at some of the other trips that we run, full grade trips that we run as well.
Yes, that would be
Right.
great. Yes.
So I think it is not simply confined to Greenkill, but broader in its
Yes.
approach. Yes?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Can we also look at, when we're looking at that, if we cover those types of trips for our public school students, does it open the door for private
That's a
school
good question.
students?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we'll get all of that.
I don't think it does, but.
Yeah, it feels, and then it goes right to bucket or something.
Okay. All right, expand to private as well. Okay, we'll find out about that. Armory we just talked about. Trustee Visa had asked us to develop a satisfaction survey for EAP. And so that will be assigned to the PDC, which is our Professional Development Committee. They're going to they have their first meeting in a couple of weeks. The thought would be to have something simple that would go out by mid-October, and then we'd get some results back on where we were. Secondary to that, Dr. Z followed up with our EAP provider on the utilization reports. And so those exist for years past. She has not completed the one for this past year, and as soon as we have that, we will get that to the board for your review in a confidential way. At the last meeting, President Jones had asked us to take a look at the guidance from State Ed on admissions of immigrant students, and we got those resources out to our principals.
Right, with regard to,
Correct.
how we do
Uh-huh.
registration and
Yep.
everything else.
So we took care of that this week.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There was a question about ransomware and what we did. This is so Olivia, I'm going to take a stab at this. We'll do a high-level summary, and if there's stuff to add, we'll do that. So we have our we had the first phase of a comprehensive cybersecurity audit conducted by Homeland Security, and they performed multi-phase audit and looked at potential weaknesses, penetration testing, and orchestrating social engineering, phishing attempts, scanned the district's publicity, facing IP addresses for open ports. All of our computers are patched on a weekly basis with security updates. Our backups are run daily, and they're stored both on-site and off-site. We have a aggressive password policy changing procedure. In the next month, all students and staff mobile devices that are not district Chromebooks or iPads are going to be sent through a captive portal, which isolates them completely from the district's internal network. So if you come in with your own device, you will be floating around in another place that's not North Shore. We also have our financial data hosted and accessed from a remote location. We do keep cybersecurity insurance from NYSER, as well as secondary insurance from AJ Gallagher. The NYSER policy covers damages up to $1 million per event, and the Gallagher policy provides coverage for multimedia liability, data recovery and business interruption, privacy regulatory defenses and penalties, crisis intervention, and customer notification, data extortion, and payment card industry fines up to $3 million. So that whole thing so there were 2 districts recently who had these issues, one where it went reasonably well and one where it did not. Our system is set up to have it go well. Okay. Any questions on that? Was a lot of information. Anything on that? No? Okay. So I had a note, somebody asked me for the district's percentage of classified students and 504 students, and so I have that.
The audience would like it to be a little louder.
Thank you. So someone had asked me the percentage of classified students and 504 students. In 1819, that percentage was 13.52%. In 1920, it is 14.36%. This is for students with IEPs. For students with 504 plans, 4.3% of our students had 504 plans in 1819, and 4.4% of our students had 504 plans have 504 plans in the 1920 school year.
How does that compare countywide? Do we know?
I don't know.
Just curious.
Yeah, I don't know.
Could you find that out, please?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Right. This year will be tricky to do because the data is not public.
Right, but prior years we can,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Just to see where we run on average.
Uh-huh, that's fine. Okay, so, yes, we can do that. We'll start with 1 year.
Yeah, well, yeah, start with if you can get the past 2 years or 3 years if we can, right? If it's available. If it's not available, if it's a huge job, I'm just curious.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. I talked to you about the utilization report from EAP. I talked to you about the netting on the baseball fields. There was a question that came up out of a statement from the TANs, right? The tax anticipation notes. And so the information is being updated on the major employers in the district. Walbaum should not be one of them. Thank you.
Home industry.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that will be taken care of. I think that might do it. Okay, yes,
old
that's
business?
everything.
Just want to say, if I'm not mistaken, this is a new format in terms of following up on questions in this public, transparent way. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Following up, making sure it's done, and they're answered, and everyone can hear the answers, the same as everyone who answered heard the questions.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. We're working on these, the three of us are working on these together.
I think we see some fingerprints.
All right, thank you, that's all that's all for me.
You had new business, yes? Trustee, please.
I appreciate the information that we got, and the information that's being disseminated to our younger children regarding stranger danger. I just want to make a comment, and I want us to be very mindful that a large percentage of inappropriate interaction with children occurs with people that they know. So I think it is very, very important. I mean, we certainly have to address stranger danger, but I think getting kids to talk about that other situation is much more challenging and probably needs to be addressed.
I think that's a good point. The stranger danger came out of, right,
Yes.
an incident, but nonetheless.
Right, and we made that, we made that, that point, it's an important point, and we made that part of the first bullet that we put out to parents as well, but that requires more follow-up with students.
Sorry, go ahead.
Several years ago, the PTO did bring in speakers regarding that particular issue that really focused more on the known person who's going to take. Yes, and so I just want to put it out there that our PTOs do a good job. Parents don't always come out, but framed well to the community, I think we can draw that in, coupled with good education, age-appropriate education, K through 12.
I was going to say, you and I have discussed a couple of times the vaping crisis and the immediacy of the issue, and so I'm bringing it up solely because I think you may actually want to say something. It's just a prompt.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, the vaping crisis is gaining, momentum every day when we read more about this. So we are looking through what's coming out of the CDC, what's coming out of the Department of Health, and we are working on a communication to send out to all of our families with information, because I think there is, and students are, and I think adults are underestimating how dangerous this is. So, and addictive.
And then
Yes.
it's here, that teens
Yes, and it is here.
have been hospitalized, have had to be put into medical comas because of.
Yep, and 6 people have died as a result of it, right? So, so that's, yes.
And that, obviously, we know vaping occurs at North Shore and how we get that
Regularly.
information out and how it is a serious addiction. It's not simply as easy as, the news saying you should stop. And I thought the other important point was the CDC's information on what the warning signs are, right? How you know before the point at which your child has to be, taken to the emergency room that you should be concerned.
Yes, and so we're partnering. We're partnering with CASA on this, and hoping to do some joint communications.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we also have to address an adult population who uses jewels, for instance, to get the habit of smoking, and that behavior is pretty mild.
That,
This is the way you stop smoking.
well, the data that came out on Juul and the pumped up nicotine levels has been, I'll say, disturbing, but
I have another.
other uplifting new business item?
It's not very uplifting, but I'm going to say it
No,
anyway.
no, that's fine.
I just want everyone to be aware that it's National Suicide Prevention Month,
Yeah.
and it's not a topic that anybody really likes to even talk about. It's so stigmatized. but it's the second largest reason for death amongst 15 to 24-year-olds. My own daughter had a friend 3 years ago from the grade level, her grade level at North Shore, who passed away, and we don't know any others since then. But I don't know. I know that there are sensitive ways to educate our children about it. But again, the contributors are extreme stress and depression amongst our young students, near young adult students, and we should be mindful and understand all the signs and symptoms perhaps.
I think
So
that's.
We see something, we say something.
I think that's a great point. And I noticed from the slides from the presentation they did in the middle school about see something, say something, and absolutely covered self-harm
Yes.
too, which was really important.
Self-harm and suicidality are not generally go hand in hand. But it's all part of our students' mental health.
Thank you. More new business. Okay. We have some unfinished business from the executive session, so we will conclude the public meeting. And we will ask to have if the trustees can have the room so that we can continue executive session, Betty, for
We can also go back if you want.
to discuss matters leading to the employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or persons. And I need a motion to go into do I have a motion to go into executive session? Do I have a second? All in favor? Thank you.
Why don't we do you mind if we go back where we were? So they
We can
clean
go
the
back
room?
if you prefer.
Right, that
Yeah.
way the custodians can clean up this space. It takes a little
Absolutely,
while.
yes. Give the room to the custodians. We will reach